Today I'm going to show you how to make a chocolate and peanut butter drip cake. I will say there unfortunately is no satisfying picture of cut into said cake because I actually made this for a friend's birthday. So to start with, for the chocolate cake you will need 350 grams of self-raising flour, 350 grams of butter or margarine, 350 grams of caster sugar, 6 eggs and 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder. To start with, in a bowl, to your caster sugar add your margarine or butter and then just mix well until it's all creamed together. Then add your eggs and mix well until combined. Then add your self-raising flour and your cocoa powder and mix really well until you've got a nice smooth batter. Then I have prepared 2 cake tins that are 6 inches wide or 15 centimetres. And when I say pre-prepared, I mean that it is greased and then lined with baking paper. Then simply add your mixture into the cake tins, trying to keep it as even as possible. Then pop into a preheated oven at gas mark 5, 190 degrees centigrade or 170 fan assisted, and bake for 40 to 50 minutes or until a skewer comes out clean. Then for the peanut butter buttercream you will need 175 grams of icing sugar, 75 grams of room temperature butter, 75 grams of smooth peanut butter and about 2 tablespoons of milk. So to a bowl, to your icing sugar add your butter and then you want to combine the two. So if you have a stand mixer, it will be much easier that you can just pop it in the stand mixer. However, I like to show the way of being able to do things without expensive equipment. I have done this before where I have just purely done it by hand, which I will link the recipe below. I had meant to do this when I was filming, however, my wrist has been currently playing up. So I ended up kind of doing a half and half way of doing this, which, to be fair, I'm happy to show people different ways of making buttercream. So to start with, you push the butter in with the fork and try and combine it as much as you possibly can. Then you want to add the peanut butter in and again press this in as much as you can to try and combine it. And then once you've combined it as much as you possibly can do, you then want to start adding in a little bit of milk at a time, just to help bring it all together and get a nice smooth spreadable buttercream consistency. So in terms of making buttercream, you don't really want to use a hand mixer in terms of making it, just because icing sugar will just go everywhere. So when I did this, I combined the icing sugar and the butter and the peanut butter as much as I could do, just to bring it together, so then the icing sugar wasn't a dust anymore, so it was more solid. So then when you bring in the hand mixer, all you're doing is just using it to just fully combine all those ingredients together to make a really smooth buttercream. So it's a nice midway point between doing all just by hand and using a stand mixer. And then for a sugar syrup for the cake, so this is an optional step, but I do find it helps the cake last longer because you're adding moisture into it, but it also just makes the cake a little bit nicer. So for the sugar syrup you will need 3 tablespoons of granulated sugar, 100 millilitres of boiling water and 1 tablespoon of cocoa powder. So to your granulated sugar add your cocoa powder and then add in your boiling water and just give it a mix until it's all well combined. And then we're going to prep the cake. You can do this with the cake cutters that you set at the height that you want. However, again, I like to show the way of doing things without expensive equipment. So you will need a bread knife and a measuring tape. So with your ruler or your measuring tape along the sides of the cake, you want to just use your bread knife just to mark along the sides of the cake height of each of the layers that you want of your cake. I always do a 2 centimetre layer, because that's just always what I've done, but you can have them slightly thicker, slightly thinner, however you want to do it. But if you go around just kind of pushing the end of the knife in just to mark it, just so it's all the way around, and then you want to then use the bread knife to kind of join up all of those markings, and then just slowly bring the knife in as you're kind of going round and round the markings, and then that will give you a nice flat layer. And you want to do this with both of the cakes, so then you end up with 4 layers. And then assembling the cake. At the bottom of the cake board, I just add a little bit of buttercream to help stick the cake down. And then you want to pop your first layer down, then spread some of the sugar syrup on top, just drizzling it in. You don't want to soak it, because you'll find then that it will kind of seep from the bottom. I've had that happen before. So I just drizzle it on top just to make it nice and moist, but not too wet. And then to the just add some of the buttercream and just spread it into a layer. And you're just going to repeat that for each layer. And then once you've assembled all your 4 layers together, you then want to add your buttercream and just spread it all the way around the cake. So we're going to do 2 layers of buttercream all the way around. Your first layer is called a crumb coat, which basically is trapping all the crumbs inside. And your second layer will be a nice smooth layer where you don't see any of the cake from the inside. So after doing your first layer, your crumb coat, just pop your cake in the fridge just for 10-15 minutes just to help that butter set, and then you can do your second layer. So I have used a cake scraper, just because I haven't figured out a way of doing this without using it. I've tried to use like spatulas and everything like that before, but they just don't create that smoother finish, whereas a cake scraper does. By all means, if anybody has any way of doing this without a cake scraper that you can use just by using something that people would have in their kitchen, please let me know, because I'm always looking for ways of doing things without using equipment, so then, you know, beginners can join in and make their first cake. And then once you've got your nice second layer on the outside, you then want to make your chocolate ganache. So for your chocolate ganache, you will need litres of double cream and 60 grams of chocolate. So I used milk chocolate, but you can use dark chocolate if you want. I wouldn't suggest using white chocolate with this, because white chocolate is a slightly different consistency, so it's a different consistency of cream to it. And I also picked out some toppings for the top, so I actually, along the lines of peanut butter, I went with some mini Reese's Pieces that I found. I believe they're actually ice cream toppings, but they did the trick. And then also some peanut butter M&Ms. Obviously you get whatever you want for the top of your cake. You don't have to go with these toppings. Whatever you want for the top, you go for it. You want to warm up your double cream. I pop mine in the microwave for 20 seconds at a time, just double checking that it doesn't expand and go over, but you just want to get your double cream really warm and really hot. And then simply add it to the top of your chocolate broken up into pieces. You want to leave that for a minute or two just to allow the chocolate to start melting, and then just start stirring it, and it should all come together into a really nice mixture. Just let that sit for a minute or two just to allow it to start cooling down. So the cooler it is, the thicker it gets. So it all depends on the type of drips you want down the side of the cake. So if you want a really thick drip down the side of the cake, you're going to want to leave the ganache slightly longer to cool down, because it will get thicker then, and then it will fall as a thick drip. If you want thin, then you can put it on while it's a little bit hotter, and then it will fall thin. Just don't put it on too hot, otherwise it will melt your buttercream. If you let it set too much, it's not going to drip. You can always just pop it back in the microwave for 10-20 seconds just to warm it up, just to get it back to a kind of more liquid consistency. Then just start popping it on top, and then using a spoon, just push it to the edges, just so then the drips of ganache can just fall naturally over the side of the cake. And then once you've got drips all the way around your cake, you then want to just add some ganache into the middle of the cake, just filling in that space. And then just add your toppings to the top of your cake in however fashion you want. And then there you have it. That is how you make a chocolate and peanut butter drip cake.